flamboyance of majestic flamingos. Just in the middle of May, thousands of flamingos descended on the wetlands of Navi Mumbai in the western Indian state of Maharashtra just ahead of their breeding season. The migratory birds transformed vast stretches of mud flats and creek areas into shades of pink, even drawing bird watchers, photographers and local residents eager to witness the seasonal spectacle. A spectacular sight indeed. Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside South Asia. I'm Kripa. Let's get started. On 14th May, a group of Italian research divers entered the waters near Vavu Atoll in the Maldives for a deep cave diving expedition in the Indian Ocean. The mission, carried out in one of the country's popular diving zones, took a tragic turn when 5 members failed to return after entering an underwater cave system. A massive search operation was launched in the wake of their disappearance. Our next report tells you more.
This is the biggest tragedy of this type in the Maldives. We don't have anything of similar magnitude in living memory.
The Maldives, renowned for its crystal clear waters, luxury resorts and thriving coral reefs, witnessed one of the deadliest diving tragedies in its history. 5 Italian nationals lost their lives during a deep cave diving expedition near Vavu Atoll, south of the capital, Malé. The divers were aboard the Duke of York, a 36-meter luxury liveaboard often used for extended research trips and high-end dive excursions. The vessel, designed to carry up to 25 guests in comfort, had been serving as the floating base for the group's coral, sampling work when the team failed to return from an underwater cave dive. Among those lost was diving instructor Gianluca Benedetti, later found near the mouth of the cave. The bodies of the remaining 4 victims were discovered deeper inside the submerged cavern. This includes marine ecologist Monica Montefalcone, an associate professor at the University of Genoa, Italy, who led the expedition, along with her daughter, Giorgia Somacal, marine biologist Federico Gualtieri, and researcher Muriel Odenino. Authorities said that the 6th member of the team had chosen not to enter the water and survived. The search and rescue operation that followed has been described as exceptionally challenging, with strong underwater currents, near-zero visibility and narrow confined passages, making access inside the cave extremely difficult for rescuers. During the operation, one Maldivian military diver also lost his life, with authorities attributing the death to suspected decompression sickness. The Maldives has a legal recreational diving limit of 30 meters, or nearly 100 feet. Authorities said all recovered bodies were found in the innermost section of the cave by 3 Finnish diving experts. The cave under the sea itself is believed to begin at a depth of around 47 meters, quickly descending into sections where sunlight cannot penetrate and divers are left in complete darkness. The deep cave diving is among the most technically demanding and hazardous forms of diving. It requires specialized equipment and strict adherence to depth and time limits. As divers descend, increasing pressure affects the body in dangerous ways, raising the risk of oxygen toxicity. It can subsequently affect the nervous system, leading to confusion, unconsciousness, and in extreme cases, death.
We knew that they were going to be diving in Vavu Atoll. What we didn't know was that it was cave diving. Of course, as divers will tell you and appreciate, it's a very different discipline with its own sets of challenges and risks involved. And particularly at that depth, there are any number of things that could have gone wrong. So While we have very strong regulations and legislation pertaining broadly to the industry, and particular to the diving industry, this was outside of that, and this was more a technical dive incident rather than a recreational dive incident.
Investigators are now working to ascertain what led to the tragedy, including whether the team went beyond safe depth limits or whether powerful underwater currents within the cave system may have drawn the divers deeper than planned. Ricardo Gambacorta, the former diving instructor of deceased Muriel Odanino, said that he did not believe the speculation that oxygen intoxication led to their deaths.
My personal opinion is that an unexpected incident may have occurred underwater. They essentially did not anticipate a certain situation. People are talking about oxygen intoxication inside the tanks, an excessively high oxygen percentage inside the tanks. Personally, I do not believe that was the cause.
The South Asian nation comprises 1,192 tiny coral islands scattered across roughly 800 kilometers along the equator in the Indian Ocean. A luxury holiday destination and popular with divers. Tourism is the lifeblood of the country, and while water sport accidents are rare, fatal incidents have occurred in recent years. As investigations continue, authorities hope that recovering the bodies will help reconstruct the final moments of the expedition and explain how a routine scientific dive turned into a fatal tragedy.
Bangladesh is struggling to bring a rapidly spreading measles outbreak under control. Since mid-March, the outbreak has claimed the lives of more than 450 children. Hospitals across the country are overwhelmed with patient numbers exceeding capacity and stretching healthcare services to their limits. Authorities have also acknowledged shortages in vaccine supply, further complicating efforts to contain the disease. Our next report gives you the details.
Horrific scenes emerging from the hospitals of Bangladesh. In crowded pediatric wards, infants and toddlers lie battling high fever, persistent cough, breathing difficulties, and the telltale rash, the sign of measles. Families are arriving from distant rural districts, often after days of exhausting travel, hoping to access better treatment in city hospitals. A rapidly spreading measles outbreak is putting an immense pressure on an already overstretched healthcare system.
Initially, the doctors at my village could not diagnose this as measles, but we realized it was measles as all the symptoms matched. My daughter had a fever, cough, and flu. Then we saw she was drooling. We were all appalled. Then we decided we would not stay here. We would take her to Dhaka.
For the last 13-14 days, we've been coming back and forth to the hospital like this. Today, things are really bad. I didn't think he'd have to be put on oxygen again. He isn't able to eat anything at all.
According to the World Health Organization and UNICEF, the outbreak has spread across almost the entire country, with tens of thousands of suspected cases emerging within just a matter of weeks. Children under the age of 5 account for the overwhelming majority of infections, while infants too young to receive full vaccination remain among the most vulnerable. On May 4th, Bangladesh recorded its deadliest single day of the outbreak so far, with 17 children dying within 24 hours. In densely populated urban centers such as Dhaka and in vulnerable regions like Cox's Bazar, home to some of the world's largest Rohingya refugee camps, the outbreak has spread with alarming speed. Overcrowded settlements, fragile healthcare infrastructure have created conditions where containing the virus has become increasingly difficult. Measles itself is among the most contagious diseases known to humanity. An airborne virus, it spreads rapidly through respiratory droplets, causing high fever, respiratory distress. The World Health Organization estimates that at least 95% vaccination coverage is required to interrupt transmission and achieve herd immunity, a threshold Bangladesh has yet to consistently attain.
I have a question for the government. We vaccinate our children to stop diseases. for reducing their life risks. If we still have to run around haphazardly with our children for treatment, then what is the point of these vaccines? I doubt its usefulness.
Bangladesh has nevertheless made significant progress in childhood immunization over decades, raising full vaccination coverage from roughly 2% in the late 1970s to more than 80% today. But it still remains insufficient to fully prevent outbreaks, particularly when gaps in immunization continue to leave large numbers of children exposed. In response to the crisis, health authorities working alongside UNICEF, the WHO and security forces launched an emergency measles rubella vaccination drive at the beginning of April. However, vaccination coverage had fallen far below the level needed for herd immunity, leaving large pockets of vulnerable children exposed to the infection. Bangladesh's Health Minister Sardar Mohammad Sakhawat Hussain has said that no doses were available when the BNP-led administration assumed office as the outbreak intensified. A court order has since been sought to bar former interim chief advisor Mohammad Yunus and 24 others from leaving the country, thus investigating the alleged vaccine shortage during that period. The issue has now escalated into a wider political and administrative controversy, with questions being raised over accountability across successive governments. But outside overcrowded hospitals for families waiting anxiously beside sick children, those political debates feel distant. What matters most to them is ensuring their children survive and stopping the disease that should never have been allowed to spread so widely in the first place.
The Afghanistan government, already facing flack over recent United Nations report about the deepening hunger crisis, has introduced a new family law regulation with certain controversial articles. The 31-article decree, based upon Taliban's interpretation of the Islamic law, lays out rules about marriage, divorce, and child marriage, and has been approved by the Taliban Supreme Leader Hibatullah Akhundzada. Our next report explores further.
Since its return to power in August 2021, the Taliban in Afghanistan has placed restrictions on women and girls, drawing international criticism and jeopardizing its chances of international recognition. Girls in Afghanistan have been barred from schooling beyond 6th grade. Women have been banned from universities, and severe restrictions have been imposed on their employment, travel, and public participation. Such is the severity of the humanitarian crisis caused by dramatic aid cuts, the Afghanistan's government's policies, and severe drought that some Afghan fathers, wrestling with extreme poverty and unemployment, have been forced into impossible, inhuman choices of selling off their young daughters merely to be able to afford food, medical expenses, and debt relief. In the backdrop of such dire circumstances, the Taliban introduced a 31-article decree titled Principles of Separation Between Spouses that was published in Afghanistan's official gazette and outlines procedures related to marriage disputes, separation, guardianship, and annulments under Taliban rule. What has drawn maximum ire is a controversial article which recognizes the silence of a virgin girl as consent to marriage. Interestingly, however, a boy's or a married woman's silence cannot be taken to mean consent. Furthermore, the document permits marriage between minors in certain cases, giving authority to fathers and grandfathers over such arrangements. Not just that, the law stipulates that a marriage of a minor boy or girl arranged by relatives can be considered valid, provided the bridegroom is deemed socially suitable and the dowry meets religious standards. The controversial rule incorporates the legal doctrine of Khiyar al-Bulugh, or option after puberty, which allows a marriage contracted before adolescence to be annulled at the child's request upon reaching puberty, but the catch is the annulment requires the consent of the religious courts as well. Additionally, a marriage is not legally valid if the partner is deemed unsuitable or if the dowry is excessively unbalanced. The question is, where is Afghanistan heading? The urgency of the humanitarian crisis can be gauged by the fact that more than 10% of Afghan population continues to be just a step away from famine. In an impoverished country where 3 in 4 people are unable to meet their basic needs. According to the United Nations, the government needs to put its own house in order and gets its priorities right. The struggle for international recognition will continue to be an uphill task, not to mention the plight of millions of girls and women under its rule.
In India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands, there's a perceptible shift from the traditional ways of life. Members of the remote tribal communities, lauded as the sons of the soil, are increasingly joining the police as home guards. Last year alone, authorities recruited more than 500 young men from across the archipelago to help manage relations with outsiders. Our next report traces this remarkable journey of India's island tribes from hunters to home guards.
This is the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a union territory of India comprising 836 islands, home to several communities classified as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. For perhaps too long, these remote communities, stressing their self-sufficient model, lived in isolation, thereby preserving their traditional way of living. It did not help that past forced contact with outsiders brought trauma, including disease outbreaks, that threatened to wipe out the indigenous populations lacking immunity. But change is starting to ripple through the Indian Ocean archipelago. Judge, one of just 143 surviving members of the N. Erigale, or perfect person in their language, describes a life on the pristine Little Andaman Island where his people still fish in bountiful coral reefs or hunt wild boar in the areas of the forest still protected by the millennia-old stewardship.
पहले का आदमी जो जमाना का आदमी लोग हम लोग का अब्बा अम्मा अब्बा लोग पहले का.
The people from older generations, like our parents, did not speak in Hindi language. They used to speak in their own native languages. As time passed and people started meeting outsiders along the way, they slowly began to pick up and learn Hindi so they could communicate better with each other.
पूरा सीख गया कैसा हिंदी सीखना कैसा बात करना. पहले हम लोग कछुआ मरने जाता ओड़ी में.
We go hunting turtles. We also catch fish and do all sorts of things. We go into the forest for hunting and set traps to catch wild boar.
फंडा भी डालेगा हम लोग चूअर का फंडा. हाँ.
Most widely known as the Onj, many of Jhat's community members still live in near isolation in neat thatched homes on stilts in coastal forests. But change is around the corner even if outsiders are barred from entering indigenous territory. Given the curiosity of the community about the wider world and its modern comforts, contact is increasing by the day.
अभी 10 पास वाले लड़की लोग.
Those who have passed class 10th in school are trying to get a job. They are putting in efforts to get jobs and they need to move further ahead.
कर रहे हैं तो उन लोग को और आगे बढ़ना है.
Last year, the authorities, treading a delicate line in managing an increasing number of visitors, began to recruit more than 500 young men from communities across the archipelago as police home guards.
See, we have this intake as home guard volunteers in Andaman and Nicobar Police, and they are very integral part. They have been a very integral part of policing. The advantage with HGVs are they are like totally sons of soil and natives of a particular area where they are posted eventually, not very far off from their native places. And they really know the terrain, the topography, and islands are very remote, the conditions are very harsh.
Jaj, who speaks some Hindi along with his friend Raja, was among the first 5 men from their community to be recruited. Today, Jaj and Raja are a source of inspiration for the younger members of their community who have begun to appreciate the value of education in their overall development. What adds to the allure of the uniform, besides the attractive salary, is a newfound interest in the outside world beyond their island. Better things, as they say, are on the horizon.
May 17th shall forever be celebrated as a significant day in Nepal's mountaineering history. On this day, two renowned Nepali mountaineers, Kami Rita Sherpa and Lakpa Sherpa, scaled Mount Everest for the 32nd and 11th time respectively, breaking their own records in the process. Our next story brings you the details.
On the 17th of May at 10:12 a.m. local time, 56-year-old Kami Rita Sherpa, renowned as the Everest Man, scaled the highest peak in the world for the 32nd time, shattering his own record set last year. Kami Rita reached the 8,849-meter peak, the Mount Everest, while guiding clients from an expedition company. On the same day, a few minutes earlier, at around 9:30 a.m., 52-year-old Lakpa Sherpa, famously known as the Mountain Queen, conquered the Everest, surpassing her previous record of 10 ascents for a woman. Lakpa Sherpa first reached the summit in 2000, becoming the first Nepali woman to successfully summit and descend the Himalayan peak. Nepal's Department of Tourism, while hailing the incredible achievements as a major milestone in Nepal's mountaineering history, congratulated both the mountaineers for their contributions to promoting mountain tourism. Kami Rita first stood on top of the world's highest mountain in 1994 while working for a commercial expedition. Since then, he has repeated the feat every year except in 2014, 15 and 2020 when expeditions to the Everest were closed for different reasons. It is mind-boggling to think that he reached the summit twice in some years. In 2024, after yet another ascent of the highest peak, Kami Rita had said that he was just working and did not plan on setting records.
I am tired now. I want to rest. I can't tell you right now what will happen in the future. Even then I will continue climbing next year, 1, 2 years.
Now, noteworthy is the fact that Kami Rita was born in the same village in Solukhumbu district as Tenzing Norgay, the first Indian Nepalese to climb the Everest. Norgay and New Zealander Edmund Hillary were the first to reach the top of the world in 1953. Since that incredible expedition by the duo, more than 8,000 people have climbed the Mount Everest, many of them several times, giving a major boost to the business of mountaineering. This year, for the March to May climbing season, Nepal has issued a record 492 Everest permits. A veritable city of tents was set up at the foot of the Everest for climbers and the support staff. But the increasing number of climbers, along with their Sherpa guides, expecting to climb the world's highest peak in the next few days, have rekindled concerns about overcrowding on the mountain, especially if poor weather shortens the climbing window. Nepal, home to 8 of the world's 10 highest peaks and heavily reliant on the mountaineering tourism as a key source of revenue, finds itself engaged in a tight balancing act.
On the 18th of May, Sri Lanka marked 17 years since the end of its civil war. In May 2009, the Sri Lankan government declared military victory over the separatist liberation tigers of Tamil Eelam or LTTE, ending nearly 3 decades of war in the island nation. As part of the observances, Sri Lanka held its National Victory Day ceremony, paying tribute to those who lost their lives during one of the country's most turbulent periods. With that, we wrap up Inside South Asia. I will see you next week.